Hi guys. So today we're going to talk about freezing in canning jars or mason jars. Which jars are okay to freeze in, which ones are not okay. And frankly, I think all of them are okay. There's just some caveats with some of them, and so we're going to kind of go through this today. If you've never seen these are awesome. They're actually made for freezing. This is a ball jar. This is a no-name brand. I'm not sure. It's not marked at all. But it has a line up here that you can fill to a fill line. And this one does too. It's hard to read. I should get a piece of paper. All right, it's still very hard to read, but it says to fill up to this line. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, you can't really read it all, but in person you can. So these are straight-sided jars, and that's what makes them okay to freeze in. And the reason for that is most things that we freeze, not all of them, but most things expand. Things like fats don't expand so much, like lard or tallow. But most stuff does expand. So you want a straight-sided jar, and the reason why is if you freeze in this more narrow mouth jar, if you go past the shoulders here, it gets smaller. So you've got this this wide expanding, it's coming up, and it can break the glass pretty easily. So you don't want to freeze in jars like this fill up to the top. If you are going to freeze in a jar like this, bring it down so it has room to expand but not past the shoulder, right? So here's an example of a ball straight-sided jar, and you may not never have noticed this, but it does say for freezing, don't fill past this line. And there's a line right there. This is a regular old wide mouth ball jar, but it's right there on the jar. Some of jars that have been used for a long time, like this one, the letters were there, but they've been worn off because this jar has been used so much. It's just worn away. You can't even see the lettering at all, but I can feel it. But here you can see, oh, look, when I move it like that, I kind of get a reflection. You can see it. So what other jars can we freeze in? So the quart jars, we've got quart jars here. This one is more straight-sided, right? It's a wide mouth. It's more straight-sided, but it still has shoulders. See that straight up and down. This one still has shoulders, and it's also not marked with a freeze line, and that's because they don't recommend freezing in these. But again, this one or this one, here's an old Presto Supreme Mason. You can freeze in it as long as you don't go past the shoulders and give it some room. So I would drop down. I wouldn't go like past these marks right here. What is that, 3 cups? I wouldn't go past that for freezing in these types of jars. So shoulders, stay below the shoulder and allow enough room for expansion. And then here's a bunch of small jars. These are all straight-sided, so they're perfectly fine to freeze in up to this level as long as you're allowing room, again, for expansion, but it's not going to break as easily, at least. Another straight-sided small jar. Another straight-sided small jar. But then we have these. Some of these jars are pretty unusual, but you've probably seen most of them. This does have shoulders, right? So you wouldn't want to freeze in it much past, half an inch below the shoulder. And this is the same. So how do you tell a shoulder, especially on these weirder jars? And that is because you can feel the jar. It goes in where the threads are, it goes in. It's not straight up and down. And if you just want to stick to the rules, just look and just see if it says for freezing, fill to this line. Then you know you've got a safe jar. And again, these were made especially for freezing. You can still find these. They're not anything too special. I think they actually still even make them. But these are made especially for freezing. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed your little jar primer. If you have a question about freezing in a jar, go ahead and let me know. But the rule of thumb, if it's straight, go ahead and freeze. If it has a shoulder, keep it below the shoulder, or just don't use the jar at all. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.